Hey guys, Luke here on Sean's channel. Today I'm bringing you guys my new and improved Fire King deck. I played Fire King before in a few different capacities. My most recent one was my Fire King Snake Eyes build, which may be a little bit outdated now, so I kind of wanted to change out the way I play Fire King. But I really didn't want to have to play Snake Eyes again just because I kind of got sick of Snake Eyes. So I was looking at a few different builds and I really liked the way the Jurrac engine played. So I decided to kind of go with that. I think it's a really cool engine that complements Fire King very well in a sense that it's able to get some board breakers by destruction, and our Fire Kings definitely benefit a lot from their destruction effect, so I think the two archetypes kind of go hand in hand together. So I decided to build this deck. So without further ado, let's just get into it. This is my new and improved Fire King deck profile. I'll start things off with my favorite Fire King card. This is Sacred Fire King Garunix. This is arguably the boss monster of the deck because he can get himself up to a ridiculous amount of attack, because when he is special summoned, what you're able to do is you're able to destroy one fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster from your hand, deck, or face upon the field. And if you do, this card gains attack equal to half of that destroyed monster's attack, which is great for an attack boost, but not only that, it's also a great bridge for us to destroy some of our Fire Kings that are in the deck. In order for us to get their effects to pop off, we're able to get a ton of advantage off of that as well. What I really like about Sacred Fire King Garunix is the fact that he's so easy to bring out, because if a monster that was originally fire is destroyed with battle or card effects, you're able to special summon this card from your graveyard if it was there when that monster was destroyed, or from your hand even if not. So he's just very easy to bring out. There's a good bridge between itself and our other Fire King monsters, and also it can get up to a crazy amount of attack as well. I think it's definitely very important to run Sacred Fire King Garunix at 3 copies in this deck. We run 1 copy of the original Fire King High Avatar Garunix, only for the sole purpose that Fire King Courtier Ulcanix needs us to run this card is the only reason why we run it. So 1 copy is more than enough for what you need. We also run 3 copies of Fire King High Avatar Kirin. Kirin is fantastic. There's a level 8 monster that's able to bring itself out to the field during the main phase if it's in a hand, just by simply destroying one other fire monster that's either in your hand or on the field, which is fantastic. But also, if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special one Fire King monster from your hand or graveyard, except for itself, and then you can destroy 1 card in the field. I definitely think Fire King High Avatar Kirin is worth running at 3 copies in this deck. As previously mentioned, we run 3 copies of Fire King Courtier Ulcanix. Ulcanix is probably one of the best normal summons in this deck, along with Ponix. Just because if she is normal or special summoned, you can destroy 1 other fire monster in your hand or face on the field, and if you do, you can add 1 fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster from your deck to your hand, except for Ulcanix. And then you can make this card's level become that added monster's level as well. So it's also good for some of the rank plays when we're playing it with our Garunix Eternity going second, which I find to be fantastic. But that's not all Ulcanix does. If it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon that original Fire King High Avatar Garunix from your deck in defense position. So she's also great at getting an extra body out onto the field. So I definitely recommend you guys run Ulcanix at 3 copies in this deck. I run 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Arvata. He's not an essential card, but I also just like to have an easy monster effect negate on the field, and Arvata is basically that. So I do think he's worth the run in this deck. He also has a good reborn effect if it is destroyed and sent to the graveyard. So I definitely think he's worth the run at 1 copy in this deck. We run 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Kirin. If you guys watched my previous video with the Fire King Snake Eye deck, you would know that Fire King Avatar Kirin is a good bridge between the 2 archetypes. But he's also a good bridge for the Jurrac engine as well, because he has the effect that if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 fire monster from your deck to the graveyard, which of course is a good way of sending your Miscellaneousaurus to the graveyard in order to activate its effect to banish it from the graveyard in order to special summon out your Megalo as well. So it's nice that we're still able to carry that bridge over for a different archetype rather than Snake Eye, just because I'm having a lot more fun with the Jurrac engine right now than I am with Snake Eyes. I run 3 copies of Ponix. This is quite strange for me because I used to play Ponix at 1 with the previous build, but considering that we're relying more so on Fire King in this deck, you really are better off running Ponix at 3 copies, because he's a fantastic normal summon, but he's also able to special summon himself out. If a monster that was originally fire is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon from your hand. And if he is normal or special summoned, you're able to add 1 Fire King spell such as Trap from your deck to your hand, which of course you have 3 targets in this deck, but your main target is going to be that Fire King Sanctuary to really get your plays going. So I definitely think Ponix is worth running at 3 copies in this deck. Going on to the Jurrac engine, we run 3 copies of Jurrac Megalo. If this card is Destroy a Battle or card effect, you can send 1 Jurrac monster from your deck / extra deck to the graveyard, which is a good way for us to get our Astero from our deck, extra deck into the graveyard as quickly as possible, so it's easy for us to get our Jurrac Meteor onto the field so we're able to blow up the field entirely. So I definitely think it's important to run Megalo at 3 copies in this deck. We also run 1 copy of Miscellaneousaurus, just because he's essential for that bridge that I mentioned earlier with Kirin. But also Miscellaneousaurus has another fantastic effect that during the main phase you can quick effect send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Then during this main phase, dinosaur monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. So it's a great way for us to kind of protect our Jurrac engine when we're going into it. So I definitely think Misk needs to be run at 1 copy in this deck. It's unfortunate we can't run it anymore. Going into hand traps now, 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just a very good universal hand trap, but also it's a fire, so it can also benefit us greatly as well. So I definitely recommend you maximize her. And then rounding off the monsters, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Just a fantastic hand trap. It can be really problematic for your opponent. Every deck adds cards from their deck to their hand, so being able to cut your opponent off from doing that, I think is fantastic. Definitely run it at 3 copies. Going into the spells now, 3 copies of Fire King Sanctuary. When Sanctuary is activated, you can place 1 Fire King Island from your deck face up in your field zone, which of course is fantastic because Island's able for us to extend plays easily. But also, Sanctuary has another effect that once per turn, if a card in your field zone will be destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy 1 fire monster in your hand or face up in field instead, which is very important because Fire King Island has a slight downside that if it is destroyed while it's in the field zone and sent to the graveyard, we need to destroy all monsters that we currently control. So that's definitely the weak point of the deck, especially if our opponent knows a way to manipulate it. Sanctuary just offers a little bit extra protection. But that's not all it does. Also the effect that once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can immediately after the effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 fire Xyz monster using only Fire King monsters you control. So it's a great way for us to go for a Garunix Eternity so that we're able to wipe our opponent's field immediately when it hits the field. So I definitely recommend you guys maximize your copies of Sanctuary. It's definitely a really important card to run. I run 2 copies of Island. I don't think there's any more reason to run it at 3 just because we run 3 copies of Sanctuary, which places Island face up in the field zone anyways. So 2 is more than enough. 1 copy of Fire King Skyburn. It's just a nice little bit of destruction if we set it to the back row or activate during our opponent's turn, because with this card you're able to target an equal number of Fire King monsters that you control and cards that your opponent controls and destroy them. But that's not all it does, it also offers a great protection because if a Fire King card you control is destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from the graveyard instead. So Skyburn is definitely worth running at 1 in this deck. Stepping away from the Fire King spells now and kind of going more into consistency cards, we run 3 copies of Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig, you're able to add 1 level 6 or lower dinosaur monster from your deck to your hand with it. So it's a good way of adding either a Misk or a Megalo depending on the situation. I definitely think it's worth maximizing your copies of Fossil Dig. I like to run 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. I think Extravagance is a great card, and I'll be honest, we don't care too much about our extra deck in this deck. We would much rather have the hand advantage more so than anything else. So I kind of built the extra deck in a way that we can use Pot of Extravagance and we're less likely to suffer the consequences of it. Because although there are plays that we can do that does rely heavily on the extra deck, I think it's been proven time and time again that Fire King doesn't really need the extra deck too often. So I like sticking to Extravagance in the main deck as well. But if you find that you don't like it too much, then that's absolutely fine, you can side it out. But just for my personal preference, I think Extravagance is a great card to be running at 3 copies in the deck. Just so we don't get interrupted, we run 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent and 1 copy of Call by the Grave. It's just a good way for us to either recover or stop our opponent if they are trying to block or combos. So definitely 1 copy of each. And then rounding off the deck, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I probably would have preferred to run that Dominus card, to be honest with you, but it's still really pricey right now. So Imperm is just a nice little replacement for that. Going into the extra deck now, 3 copies of Garunix Eternity. All you need is 2 level 8 monsters in order to go into her, and you're also able to go into her during your opponent's turn if you are able to successfully pull off Fire King Sanctuary, because if this card is XZ summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field, which of course is fantastic, especially during our opponent's turn, that we're able to completely mess them up with this. But that's not all Garunix Eternity does. It also has another effect where you can attach 1 material from this card and target 1 spell or trap on the field and destroy it. And if you do, this card gains 500 attack, so it's a nice way to get it up to a 3500 attack monster. But also, if this card is destroyed while it has material, you can special summon Fire King monster from your graveyard up to the number of materials that this card had, which of course is fantastic. Not only do we run at 3 because it is a very good card, but also since we run Extravagance, we really don't want this card getting banished. So I think it is the ideal ratio to be running it at 3 copies. We run 2 copies of Jurrac Astero and 2 copies of Jurrac Meteor. Considering that I'm running Pot of Extravagance, you'd probably expect me to be like playing trios of each card, but this is a ratio I'm running it at because I did want to make room in the extra deck for some other like really powerful cards, because we're not always going to be seeing Pot of Extravagance every game. That's just unrealistic. It's a 3 of in a 42 card deck. So I try to keep at least a little bit of room for other plays. But I believe that this is the ideal ratio to be running your Jurrac monsters if you're playing Pot of Extravagance. If you didn't want to be playing Pot of Extravagance, you'd be running that even less, just because all you really need is 1 of each in order to get your board wipe to go. But just for this deck in particular, I think that this is the ideal ratio to go with. We run 1 copy of Linkuriboh, fresh to 1 off the ban list. I just think it's a really good card, and we have plenty of level 1 monsters in this deck, so if we're stuck and our back is up against the wall, Linkuriboh is definitely a very good card to be seeing. We also run 1 copy of SP Little Knight. You guys already know SP is a very powerful card, so of course why wouldn't we run it in this deck. We also run 1 copy of Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. This is mostly just for us to kind of get our fire monsters back from the graveyard into rotation again if we have no other ways of getting them back into rotation. Sunlight Wolf is definitely very good at doing that for us. We also run 1 copy of Hiita the Fire Charmer Ablaze, just in case we're going against another fire deck and we want to kind of like steal one of their fire monsters in their graveyard. Hiita is definitely a very good way for us to do that, especially if we're link climbing up into our Promethean Princess. Promethean Princess is not only good, especially with the likes of Amblowhale, for us to have a good end board piece for disruption, but also she can be quite essential with the likes of Salamangreat Raging Phoenix as well if we're going for an OTK play with Raging Phoenix and Zealantis. So I think these are the ideal cards to have in your extra deck. I didn't want to go heavy and too reliant on all these cards just because we do run Extravagance, so if we do successfully pull off Extravagance, then we don't want to be reliant on these cards. But they are also just very good cards to have in the extra deck if we don't see Extravagance and we can go for some extra deck plays. It's just a different way to kind of play the deck essentially, but it's entirely up to yourself whatever way you kind of want to take it. Going into the side deck now, we run 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. Lancia is still pretty good just because Malice is still a massive problem in the meta right now. It's definitely not the top deck anymore, but it is definitely a really popular strategy. And considering that not many people play Lancia anymore, Malice players are getting a little bit too comfortable. We like to keep them on their toes, and playing a playset of Lancia in the side deck, it's always a good way to kind of do that. We also run 3 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. This is specifically for our Mitsurugi players. Mitsurugi relies heavily on the graveyard, so Ghost Bell is a good way to kind of tackle that. It can be good against a lot of other different matchups as well, but Mitsurugi in particular is the reason why we run Ghost Bell in the side. We also run 3 copies of DD Crow. DD Crow is great. I kind of have phases of DD Crow where I think he is less important in the format and I actually end up prefer playing Bestials, but we don't benefit too greatly off of Bestials, so I think DD Crow is probably a better way to go, just because it's able to banish anything from our opponent's graveyard rather than just specific light or dark monsters. So I think a playset in the side is definitely really good to consider. We also run 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. Droplet's fantastic. I've been playing this in a lot of my side decks recently, not only because it is a good card, but also if your opponent doesn't see you with it in the first game, they're not really expecting it too much in the second game. So I think it's definitely a cool little surprise that your opponent won't necessarily be seeing coming. So I think Droplet is definitely a really good ace card to be running in the side. And then finally, kind of a staple with all my side decks at this stage, 3 copies of Solemn Strike. If we're going into game 3 and we're going first, Strike is definitely a fantastic card that I really like playing. So that does it for the deck. Please let me know what you guys think. I'm really happy with this deck turned out. I definitely find myself having a lot more fun with this build than I was with my Snake Eyes build, so I think this is definitely the right direction to take Fire King. That's just a personal preference, of course. If you guys prefer Snake Eyes, all power to you. I just personally prefer the Jurrac engine. I think it's just a lot more fun to have kind of like big blowout cards like Meteor and stuff like that I find to have a lot more fun with. But it's definitely up to yourself. Definitely feel free to experiment a lot with this deck because Fire King can be taken in so many different directions. If you guys are looking to build this deck, please be sure to use the affiliate links down in the description, because if you use those affiliate links, you help directly support the channel to help myself and Sean keep bringing you guys these videos. Another way you guys can help support the channel is if you guys can consider becoming a member. I want to give a big shout out to our members Jojo TCGs, John Cran, Amira Cumber, Johnny, and Dragon's God 679. We really appreciate your support, so I want to give a big shout out to you guys. And then for everyone else, if you can just like the video and subscribe to the channel and even leave a comment, it all really helps in the long run. So thank you very much for that, and we'll see you guys in the next video.